Welcome back to Cooking with Rod. This is the beginning of another season here in the Sky Garden. The setup week is officially underway for 2026. Every season starts right here, before the recipes, before the harvests, and before the garden is overflowing with fresh ingredients. It all begins with preparation. This week is all about setting the Sky Garden ready for another year of growing, cooking, and creating together high above the city. We're cleaning containers, organizing supplies, preparing soil, arranging planters, checking irrigation, and getting every corner of the balcony ready for the fresh new growing season. Up here on the 17th floor, the Sky Garden becomes more than just a balcony garden. It becomes a place where fresh ingredients turn into real homemade meals, where herbs, vegetables grow right beside the Toronto skyline. Throughout the season, you'll see everything from seedlings and garden maintenance to harvests, fresh recipes, garden to table cooking, preservation projects, and relaxing evenings spent cooking with ingredients grown right here in the Sky Garden. Whether you're growing in the backyard, on a patio, or on a small apartment balcony, this series is about showing that anyone can grow something amazing with a little creativity and care. So grab a coffee, settle in, and come spend setup week with me as we begin the Sky Garden back to life for 2026. The full garden updates, recipes, seasonal projects will all be right here throughout the year. Right here on Cooking with Rod. Let's get started. This is the view from the Sky Garden in 2026, 17 floors above the city, surrounded by rooftops, traffic, and concrete. But up here, this little space becomes something completely different. Every season, this balcony transforms into a place filled with fresh herbs, vegetables, flowers, and containers overflowing with life. It starts with an empty setup, a few pots, a little planning, and a lot of patience. Looking out across the city, it's hard not to appreciate how much can grow in a small space. Even high above the streets and buildings below, there's still room to create a garden, grow food, and build something peaceful. This is where the 2026 Sky Garden season begins. Soon these containers will be filled with seedlings, will be growing, and fresh ingredients will eventually make their way from the balcony straight to the kitchen here on Cooking with Rod. One of the best parts of the Sky Garden is slowing down for a moment and enjoying the process, watching the weather change, seeing the first sprouts appear, harvesting fresh ingredients, and turning them into homemade meals while the city stretches out in the background. Whether you have a backyard, a patio, or just a small balcony like this, gardening is really about creating something meaningful in the space you have. And this little corner above Toronto is where another season officially begins. Some days in the Sky Garden are bright and sunny, and other days remind you just how powerful nature can be. Looking out across the city after the rain, the entire skyline changes mood in just a few minutes. Dark clouds roll in, the wind picks up across the balcony, and then suddenly a rainbow appears, stretching across the horizon. Moments like this are one of the reasons the Sky Garden feels so special. Up here on the 17th floor, you get a front row seat to everything changing season. Every storm, every sunset, and every calm evening that passes over the city. Gardening teaches patience. Not every day is perfect growing weather. Some days bring heavy rains, strong winds, cooler temperatures, and unexpected challenges. But every season has its moments of beauty too, and sometimes they show up right after the storm passes. The balcony may be surrounded by buildings and traffic far below, but up here, there is still space to slow down, breathe, and appreciate moments like this. Soon the garden containers will be filled with fresh herbs, vegetables, flowers, and new growth for the 2026 season. And every rainfall, every sunny afternoon, and every changing cloud overhead becomes part of the growing process. Nature has a way of reminding us to keep going, even after the darker days. And today the Sky Garden gave us a rainbow over Toronto. Every once in a while, the Sky Garden gives you something incredible to stop and appreciate. Out across the winter sky, the sun breaks through the cold air and creates what's known as sundogs, bright rainbow-like reflections glowing on both sides of the sun. Standing up here on the 17th floor, looking over the city, while the entire sky lights up like this, is one of those moments that makes everything slow down for a minute. The Sky Garden isn't only about growing vegetables and cooking fresh food, it's also about paying attention to the seasons, the weather, the changing light, and all the little moments happening around us every day. Winter up here feels quite quiet and frozen, but during the coldest months, nature still finds a way to surprise you. The sunlight reflects through the ice crystals in the atmosphere, creates these glowing pillars beside the sun, almost like the sky is putting on a show over the city. Moments like this remind you why it's worth stepping outside, looking up, and appreciating what's happening around you, even on cold winter mornings. Soon enough, the snow will melt, the containers will be filled again, and the 2026 Sky Garden season will come back to life with fresh herbs, vegetables, flowers, and new growth. But for now, the winter sky gives us something beautiful to pause and enjoy here above Toronto. Nature always finds a way to put on a show in the Sky Garden. There's something peaceful about watching the city wake up from the Sky Garden. Before the traffic gets busy, before the noise of the day starts, the sunrise takes over the entire horizon with color. Up here on the 17th floor, mornings like this feel almost unreal. The sky slowly shifts from deep reds and oranges into glowing golds, stretching across the Toronto while the city lights begin to fade below. This is one of the quietest moments in the Sky Garden. Just the fresh morning air, the sound of the wind moving across the balcony, and the beginning of another new day. Every growing season starts with mornings like this, watering containers before the heat of the day. Checking seedlings, watching plants grow a little more every morning, and taking a few minutes to appreciate the view before getting to work. The Sky Garden has always been more than just growing food. It's about slowing down enough to notice moments like this. The changing seasons, the changing skies, and the simple beauty of watching the sunrise over the city. Soon the containers will be full of fresh herbs, vegetables, flowers, and new life for the 2026 season. But mornings like this remind you that the process itself is just as important as the harvest. Every sunrise feels like a fresh start, and today the Sky Garden gave us another incredible one above Toronto. One of the best parts about gardening is realizing that some plants just keep coming back stronger year after year. This garlic chive plant is now 5 years old, and every season it reminds me how resilient nature can be. After another long winter up here in the Sky Garden, the fresh green growth is finally starting to return again. New shoots are pushing up through the older growth, bringing the plant back to life for another season high above the city. It's amazing to think this started years ago as a much smaller plant in a simple container on the balcony. Since then, it's survived heavy rain, intense summer heat, strong winds on the 17th floor, cold nights, and long Canadian winters. And it still comes back every spring. Garlic chives have become one of the most reliable plants in the Sky Garden. Fresh, flavorful, easy to grow, and perfect for adding into homemade meals throughout the season. There's something satisfying about seeing those first green blades appear again after winter. It's one of the first signs that the growing season is waking back up. Soon this container will be full again with fresh growth, ready for harvesting, trimming, cooking, and adding into recipes here on Cooking with Rod. Moments like this remind you that gardening is really about patience and consistency. You take care of the plants season after season, and eventually they reward you by coming back stronger every year. 5 years later, this garlic chive plant is still thriving here in the Sky Garden, and the 2026 season is just getting started. Every growing season in the Sky Garden starts small, before the containers fill up with fresh vegetables and herbs, before the harvests, recipes, and garden updates. Everything begins right here with seeds and patience. This burpee seed starting kit is one of the first signs that the 2026 season is officially underway. Tiny seeds are already starting to emerge through the soil, reaching towards the light, one small step at a time. At this stage, it may not look like much yet, but every mature plant in the Sky Garden starts exactly like this. There is something exciting about watching those first sprouts appear. After a long winter, seeing fresh green growth again means the season is waking back up. Up here on the 17th floor, starting seeds indoors gives the Sky Garden a head start before the warmer weather fully arrives. It's the beginning of months of growing, watering, pruning, harvesting, and eventually cooking with fresh ingredients grown right here on the balcony. Inside this small seed tray are the beginnings of future meals, fresh herbs, garden harvests, and new life for the season ahead. Gardening always teaches patience. You plant the seeds, take care of them every day, and slowly watch them grow stronger over time. And honestly, this is one of the best parts of the entire process. These tiny seedlings may be small today, but soon they'll become part of the full 2026 Sky Garden, here on Cooking with Rod. This is where the Sky Garden 2026 season truly begins. Every packet on this table represents a new project, a new harvest, and months of future growth waiting to happen. Tomatoes, rosemary, parsley, sweet peppers, carrots, bunching onions, lettuce, beans, all getting ready for another season high above the city here in the Sky Garden. We'll also be picking up some starts from the nursery next week, so we'll let you know about those. It's amazing how something so small can eventually turn into overflowing containers, fresh harvest baskets, and homemade meals straight from the balcony garden. Right now, they're just seeds, tiny beginnings with lots of potential. Some of these will start indoors in trays under careful attention and daily watering. Others will eventually go directly into the containers once the weather warms up. Every growing season starts with planning like this, deciding what to grow, organizing the seeds, preparing the containers, and imagining that the Sky Garden will look like a few months from now. There's always excitement at this stage of the season. Fresh possibilities, new varieties to try, favorite plants returning again, and the anticipation of watching everything slowly come to life. Up here on the 17th floor, every inch of growing space matters, so each plant has a purpose. Some will become fresh ingredients for recipes on Cooking with Rod. Some will be harvested throughout the summer for salads, soups, sauces, and garden-to-table meals. And some will simply be grown because the garden itself is part of the joy of the Sky Garden. Gardening teaches patience from the very beginning. You plant the seeds, trust the process, and take care of them one day at a time. And before long, these tiny packets will turn into a full season of life growing above Toronto. One of the most exciting moments in the Sky Garden is finally starting to happen. The seeds are beginning to sprout. After days of watering, waiting, and checking the trays every morning, the first little signs of life are finally pushing up through the soil. Tiny green stems may not look like much, but this is the beginning of the entire 2026 growing season. Every tomato, herb, onion, lettuce leaf, and pepper plant starts exactly like this. Small, fragile, and reaching toward the light, one day at a time. Watching seedlings emerge never gets old. It's one of those simple gardening moments that always brings excitement, no matter how many seasons you've grown before. Up here on the 17th floor, these little trays are the starting point for months of future growth in the sky garden. Before long, these seedlings will be transplanted into containers across the balcony where they'll continue growing through the summer. Some will become fresh ingredients for homemade meals here on Cooking with Rod. Some will be harvested for salads, soups, sauces, and fresh garden cooking throughout the season. Right now, though, the focus is simple: warmth, water, sunlight, and patience. Gardening teaches you not to rush the process. Growing happens slowly, one stage at a time, and every little sprout is a reminder that something bigger is beginning. After a long winter, seeing fresh green life return to the sky garden feels like the season is finally waking up again. And this is only the beginning of what's coming in 2026 Sky Garden above Toronto. Day by day, the Sky Garden is starting to come alive. What began as tiny seeds hidden beneath the soil is now turning into real growth across the seed trays. The seedlings are stretching upwards towards the sunlight, getting a little taller and a little stronger every day. Some are already developing their first true leaves, while others are just beginning to emerge and start their journey. It's amazing how quickly things begin to change once the growing season gets underway. Up here on the 17th floor, these trays are the first stage of what will eventually become a full balcony garden filled with fresh vegetables, herbs, and ingredients for the 2026 season. Tomatoes are reaching higher, onions are standing tall, lettuce is beginning to fill out, and peppers are slowly waking up under the warmth and sunlight. Right now, the focus is all about care and consistency. Daily watering, rotating the trays, or for even light, checking moisture levels, and making sure each seedling has the best possible start before moving outdoors later in the season. Gardening always reminds you that growth takes time. You can't rush the process. Every healthy plant starts with small, steady progress like this. Looking at these trays now, it's easy to imagine what the sky garden will become in a few months. Overflowing containers, fresh harvests, herbs blowing in the wind, and homemade meals created from ingredients grown right here above Toronto. For now, those little seedlings are still at the beginning of their story, and the 2026 Sky Garden season is growing stronger one day at a time. One of the most important parts of starting seeds is knowing when it's time to thin the seedlings. It may seem difficult to remove some of the extra sprouts after waiting for them to grow, but thinning gives the strongest plants the space they need to develop healthy roots and grow properly. Here in the Sky Garden, the seed trays are starting to settle into the next stage of the 2026 season. The overcrowded cells have been carefully thinned out, leaving behind the healthiest and strongest seedlings to continue growing toward transplant time. Tomatoes, onions, lettuce, peppers, and herbs are all beginning to establish themselves now. Some are already standing taller and reaching for the sunlight, while others are still slowly developing their first true leaves. Gardening always teaches balance and patience. Sometimes growth means making room for the strongest plants to thrive. Up here on the 17th floor, every container and every seedling matters because space in the Sky Garden is limited. Giving these young plants proper airflow, sunlight, and room to grow now will help create healthier plants later in the season. It's amazing how quickly things change at this stage. Just a short time ago, these trays were nothing but soil and seeds. And now the first real signs of the 2026 garden are beginning to take shape. Soon these seedlings will outgrow the trays and move into larger containers across the balcony, where they'll continue growing into fresh ingredients for recipes here on Cooking with Rod. For now, the focus stays simple: sunlight, water, patience, and steady daily care. Little by little, the Sky Garden is coming back to life above Toronto. Just 2 weeks into the 2026 Sky Garden season, and already the transformation is starting to happen. What begins as tiny seeds hidden beneath the soil is now turning into healthy young plants, reaching up towards the sunlight every single day. The tomatoes are getting taller and developing stronger stems. The peppers are filling out with fresh green leaves. Lettuce is beginning to spread wider, and the onions are standing upright and gaining strength with every passing day. It's amazing how much progress can happen in only a couple of weeks, with the right balance of warmth, water, sunlight, and patience. Up here on the 17th floor, these seed trays are becoming the foundation of the entire Sky Garden for 2026. In a few more weeks, many of these seedlings will be ready to move into larger containers across the balcony, where they'll continue growing throughout the season. Some of these plants will eventually become fresh salads, sauces, soups, herbs, and homemade meals, featured here on Cooking with Rod. But right now, this stage is all about building healthy roots and strong growth before the outdoor season fully begins. Gardening has a way of teaching you to appreciate the small process. Every new leaf, every stronger stem, and every inch of growth becomes part of the journey. Looking at these seedlings now, it's easy to start imagining what the balcony will look like later in the summer. Containers overflowing with greenery, herbs moving in the wind, fresh harvest baskets, and the Sky Garden completely alive again. 2 weeks ago, these were just seeds. Today, the 2026 Sky Garden is officially growing above Toronto. One step at a time, the 2026 Sky Garden is starting to take shape. Today, it's all about setup, organizing the containers, preparing the growing space, and getting the bucket system ready for another full season high above the city. Up here on the 17th floor, every inch of balcony space matters, so planning and the layout become a big part of the process before planting even begins. These buckets may look simple right now, but a few short weeks they'll be filled with soil, roots, fresh growth, and eventually overflowing plants stretching across the Sky Garden. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, lettuce, onions, beans, and more will soon turn this balcony into a full urban garden overlooking Toronto. One of the best things about container gardening is learning how much food you can grow in a limited space, with little creativity and consistency. Every bucket represents another future harvest, another project for the season, and another opportunity to grow fresh ingredients right at home. The setup stage may not be the flashiest part of gardening, but it's one of the most important. Building strong supports, organizing containers properly, planning spacing, and preparing the layout now helps everything run smoother once the season really takes off. There's something exciting about seeing the balcony slowly transform from an empty space into a functioning garden again. Soon this area will be filled with greenery, climbing plants, fresh herbs moving in the wind, and ingredients ready for recipes here on Cooking with Rod. Right now though, this is where the work begins. Bucket by bucket, the 2026 Sky Garden is coming back to life above Toronto. Right now, the buckets are still empty. No plants yet, no overflowing vines, no fresh harvests, just containers lined up along the balcony, waiting for another growing season to begin here in the Sky Garden. But every garden starts exactly like this. Before the greenery, before the fresh herbs and vegetables take over the space, there's always a setup stage where everything begins with preparation and possibility. Up here on the 17th floor, these buckets will soon become home to tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, onions, herbs, beans, and all kinds of fresh ingredients growing high above Toronto. Looking at them now, it's hard to imagine how different the balcony will look in just a few short months. Soon the containers will be filled with soil, then seedlings, then roots, flowers, climbing vines, and eventually harvest baskets full of fresh food. Gardening always starts with vision and patience. Sometimes the most exciting part is standing at the very beginning of the process, looking at the empty space and imagine what it could become. Every season brings a fresh opportunity to grow something new, improve the setup, try different varieties, and continue building the sky garden one bucket at a time. For those, these containers are still empty, but the 2026 season is getting closer every day above Toronto. Every growing season starts long before the first harvest. Sometimes it starts with the simple things like hauling home bags of potting mix and getting ready for another year in the sky garden. This is one of those behind the scenes moments that every gardener knows well. The planning, the supplies, the heavy lifting, and all the preparation that happens before a single container is planted. These bags of potting mix may not look exciting on their own, but they're the foundation for the entire 2026 season. Every tomato plant, pepper, herb, lettuce container, and garden bucket in the sky garden will depend on healthy soil to grow strong throughout the summer. Up here on the 17th floor, container gardening means building the growing environment from the ground up each season. Good soil makes a huge difference when you're growing in buckets and containers instead of directly in the ground. Bringing everything home from Costco, always one of those moments where the season starts to feel real again. Suddenly, the planting stage turns into action. The supplies are here, the containers are waiting, the seedlings are growing, and the sky garden is officially starting to come back to life. Gardening isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's carrying heavy bags, organizing supplies, cleaning containers, and preparing the space one step at a time. But every bit of work now helps create the garden that will eventually fill this balcony with fresh vegetables, herbs, and ingredients for recipes here on Cooking with Rod. Another season is getting closer, and it all starts with soil, hard work, and a cart full of potting mix for the sky garden above Toronto. The next stage of the 2026 sky garden is officially about to begin. The buckets are cleaned, the layout is planned, the seedlings are growing indoors, and now the potting mix is finally out on the balcony, ready to fill the containers. This is the point where the garden really starts to come together. Up here on the 17th floor, every bucket becomes its own growing space. A place where tomatoes, peppers, herbs, onions, lettuce, beans, and other fresh ingredients will spend the next several months growing high above Toronto. Good soil is one of the most important parts of successful container gardening. When you're growing in buckets instead of directly in the ground, the potting mix becomes the entire foundation for healthy roots, strong growth, moisture retention, and nutrient support throughout the season. Right now, these buckets are still empty, but as soon as they're filled with fresh soil, transplanted seedlings, support cages, watering systems, and eventually full-grown plants overflowing across the sky garden. There's always excitement at this stage because you can finally start visualizing how the balcony will look once the summer arrives. In a few short weeks, this space will begin transforming into a full urban garden filled with greenery, flowers, herbs blowing in the wind. No flowers. And fresh ingredients ready for recipes here on Cooking with Rod. Gardening is really a process of building things step by step. First planning, then setup, then soil, then planting, and eventually the harvest. Today is another important part of the process. The soil is ready, the containers are waiting, and the sky garden is getting closer to planting above Toronto. The sky garden is starting to look like a real growing space again. The buckets are now filled, lined up across the balcony, and ready for planting as the 2026 season moves into its next stage. Seeing the containers full of fresh soil always makes the garden feel alive again after a long winter. Up here on the 17th floor, these buckets become the foundation of the entire growing season. Each one will soon hold tomatoes, peppers, herbs, lettuce, onions, beans, and other fresh ingredients growing high above Toronto. The tomato cages are already in place, waiting for the plants to climb upward through the summer months. Right now, the buckets may still look simple, but before long, this entire balcony will be overflowing with greenery and life. One of the best things about container gardening is watching the transformation happen step by step. Empty balcony, clean buckets, fresh soil, seedlings, then eventually full-grown plants stretching towards the sky. Every bucket here represents another future harvest and another opportunity to grow fresh food at home. There's something satisfying about reaching this stage of the setup, because this is where all the planning finally starts turning into a real garden. Soon the seedlings growing indoors will be transplanted outside into these containers, where they'll grow through the warm months ahead. In a few short weeks, this balcony will begin changing completely. Green leaves filling the space, herbs moving in the wind, and fresh ingredients ready for recipes here on Cooking with Rod. For now, the buckets are filled, the foundation is ready, and the Sky Garden is one step closer to planting day. The Sky Garden may be waking up for the 2026 season, but the weather is still reminding us that spring in Toronto takes its time. Warmer afternoons are finally starting to show up, but those cold nighttime temperatures are still hanging around. That's one of the biggest challenges of gardening up here on the 17th floor. Even when the daytime sun feels warm, overnight temperatures and strong balcony winds can still be tough on young plants and seedlings. Right now, the seedlings are safer indoors while the weather slowly becomes more stable. Gardening always teaches patience, especially during early spring. It's tempting to rush outside and start planting everything immediately once the first warm days arrive. But one cold night can quickly damage tender plants like tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. For now, the Sky Garden stays in preparation mode. The buckets are ready, the soil is prepared, the seedlings are growing stronger every day, and the balcony setup is almost complete. Now it's just a matter of waiting for the weather to finally catch up with the season. Every gardener knows this stage well, checking forecasts constantly, watching nighttime temperatures, and waiting for the moment when it's finally safe to move everything outside full time. Spring always arrives eventually, and when it does, the 2026 Sky Garden will be ready to grow. And just like that, setup week for 2026 Sky Garden season is officially underway. Every season starts with these small steps: organizing, preparing, planting, planning, and getting everything ready for the months ahead. It may not look like a full garden yet, but this is where it all begins. In a few short weeks, these containers and planters will be overflowing with fresh herbs, vegetables, and ingredients that will eventually make their way straight into the kitchen here on Cooking with Rod. One of the best parts about Sky Garden is watching the entire journey unfold from start to finish, from empty containers and tiny seedlings all the way to fresh homemade meals created with ingredients grown right here on this balcony high above Toronto. Throughout the 2026 season, we'll be growing together, learning together, cooking together, and sharing every stage of the process along the way. There will be garden updates, harvest days, fresh recipes, preservation projects, relaxing evening cooks, seasonal planting guides, and plenty of garden-to-table inspiration all season long. And hopefully this series reminds people that you don't need a massive backyard to grow fresh food. Even on a small balcony, patio, or a little corner space can become something incredible with time, patience, and consistency. Thanks for spending part of your day with me here on the Sky Garden on Cooking with Rod. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a new Sky Garden update or recipe. Share this video with your gardening friends, your cooking friends, or anyone who loves fresh food and growing at home. The 2026 season is just getting started, and there's a lot more coming soon. Thanks for watching Cooking with Rod, and I'll see you in the next Sky Garden video.